empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? 4 to 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. Very, very tough day today for us. The loss of Dwayne Haskins, 24 years old, passed away early today in Florida. I thought it'd be appropriate for Nevadabuck and I to get on here and just talk about some of our fondest memories watching Dwayne, going through his recruiting. The kid was one of maybe the greatest quarterback in Ohio State history. He's certainly in the conversation, had the greatest season in 2018. So thought it'd be appropriate to be on here. Again, appreciate all your support, guys. This is a really tough day. It's a tough time. So, your support means a lot to us. But yeah, I just wanted to bring in Nevada. How are you doing today? Obviously, it's a tough day, but how are you dealing with this so far?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to process. Dwayne's meant so much to the program, and look, yeah, I think we all know intuitively that people die and things happen and bad things happen, and it's always sad when they do. And so I try to focus on the good things and the positive memories and the positive things, the impact that Dwayne had, in a relatively short time, on the planet, and certainly to Ohio State football. He's one of the legendary quarterbacks and certainly provided me with so much joy watching him play, because he was, such a tremendous athlete and tremendous thrower. And like I said, it's a loss. It's a gut punch. And there's just not, like I said, there's going to be times for analyzing how this happened and what happened. And I'm sure this is a tragedy that involves a lot of people and things, but I'm just going to try to focus on the good things and the good memories of Dwayne, and hopefully most Ohio State fans do the same.
Yeah, it's been really too common recently that I've had to speak on teammates and Ohio State players that have passed much too young. Obviously, Shane Olivier passed away a couple months ago. A few years ago, Will Smith passed away. Mike Kudla, J.D. Larson, Zach Schlegel, who was a walk-on lineman. We had Kosa George, Adam Bellamy. I mean, these are kids. I mean, they're all less than 30 years old, except for Shane and Will. Most of the, Mike Kudla might have been 34, 35. So, I mean, it's Dwayne's only 24. So, I mean, and they're all different circumstances. Multiple suicides. Obviously Will had a tragic accident where he was gunned down. Dwayne obviously, in an incident on a highway, but it's hard just because, these things happen suddenly and they're terrible. And it's a good reminder for people that, you better enjoy your life because you don't know when your number's going to be called. And it's tough when a kid like Dwayne is 24. I mean, it's tough when I hear about any of my teammates passing, but, a kid that's 24, he's hanging with his teammates that during the day, working out, and he's doing what every NFL player does in the offseason. He's, they're usually somewhere warm, like Florida or Texas, Arizona, and they're training with their teammates and probably hanging out a little bit at night, and something like this happens, something that's completely tragic, and it's brutal. So, Any thoughts on what I just said, Nevada, and anything you want to kind of dovetail with that?
Yeah, I just, again, it is when things like this happen, I think everybody's got to take a step back and look at what's really important. And, we always try to stay so positive on the board about this because we remember these are kids and these are people that are involved with this stuff. And it is a game. These are overgrown, giant people, but they're still boys playing a game. And, it's a gift they give all of us, and we just got to enjoy it while we have them. And, like I said, it's a tragic passing. But, for me, Dwayne's not going to be remembered. I'm not going to remember him for today. I'm going to remember him for, like I said, for all the great moments of joy that he provided me. And I mean, you're talking about a guy that ushered the modern passing era into Ohio State football. I mean, more than any one person. If you said, who's the person most responsible for Ohio State, being known for quarterbacks. And I mean, you can talk about Ryan Day all you want, but it's really Dwayne Haskins and that golden arm and those. What did he have that year? 50 touchdown passes or something obscene like that. He's played such a significant role in what, one season of playing time, and he left an indelible mark on the program, and a mark that's going to be felt for for decades and decades and decades. And so he certainly has a strong legacy at Ohio State, and like I said, I'll always be grateful for having a chance to watch him play.
Yeah, I mean, he was half of maybe the most ferocious quarterback competition in school history between him and Joe Burrow. And obviously, he ended up prevailing and winning out, and Joe Burrow transferred on to LSU. And, at the time when you're Urban Meyer, Ryan Day, Kevin Wilson, and you got to kind of pick a guy, you go with, if it's all even, you take the younger guy. If they're both, incredibly talented, great players, then you take the guy who's a sophomore instead of the guy who's a junior. And then Joe enters the portal. He goes to LSU. Doesn't exactly light the world on fire his first year. And Dwayne has maybe the greatest quarterbacking season in the history of Ohio State. Ends up being a first-round pick. So his first year, his rookie year in the NFL, Joe Burrow, wins the Heisman that year. Has that amazing 2019 for the LSU Tigers on the national championship. But yeah, it's going to be one of those things where he really was fun to watch. So we're going to go through some of our first moves. I mean, we were all there watching the Michigan game in 2017. Strange game. JT Barrett or a cameraman runs into him, or something strange happens before the game, bangs his knee up, gets hurt again in the game. Dwayne has to come in relief. Talk a little bit about that moment. The plays Dwayne made, it didn't look great at the time when he went in, but he ended up saving the day. Talk a little bit about what you remember from that day and that moment and that victory.
Well, that pass to Austin Mack, where he comes in cold and throws a dot to Mack, and Austin gets just walloped, head contact or targeting or whatever the heck that was, and converts, and Dwayne sure, an Ohio State team that looked a little lost that day, all of a sudden found life, and he sparked him to a huge victory. And again, that's when we started to get the glimpse of that golden arm and what he could do with that, and how that's something that we just had never really seen before at Ohio State. We've had some really good quarterbacks at Ohio State, and Troy Smith, obviously, and Schleicher and Bobby Hoyne and the legendary Craig Krenzel, 4 for 14 in the national championship game or whatever it was. But then you have Dwayne, who's, again, he's got an NFL passing arm and NFL passing ability. And, you just you got the impression that day against Michigan that every time he went back that he was going to complete the ball. And he could throw it all over he could make all the throws. And you just knew you were watching something really special. And it was just a treat watching him go out there and do it.
Yeah, and he saved the day. I mean, that's for a redshirt freshman to come in that moment, no fear, make the play, and again, it's hard. I've been in his shoes where you're standing around, you don't know if you're going to go in. I'm sure you're into it when you're a backup quarterback, but it's one of those things where, as soon as they call your number, I mean, game's on. There's no 15-minute warm-up period. There's no, hey, you're in that next play. The play clock's running, and to come in and play like he did was it was unbelievable. And then, obviously he takes over the following year. Talk a little bit about, the 2018 season was a strange year. Obviously it started off, with the Urban Meyer news issues, and, Ryan Day is the interim head coach to start the year, beat some teams, beat TCU, get rolling. It was a year of maybe the worst defense we've ever seen in Ohio State history. I mean, it was just unbelievably bad, but our throw game was just out of this world good. Talk to me a little bit about that 2018 season, which was capped, obviously, in the regular season by the Michigan win. Maybe the greatest Michigan win of all time, the most points we've ever scored against Michigan. Talk to me a little bit about that 18 season where Dwayne Haskins it was his 1 year as our full-time quarterback.
Well, it was just, it was a fun year watching him grow. I felt like we got to see almost like a career of growth all in one season. It's like, you saw the Meyer offense kind of transitioning. You saw Dwayne being, a little reluctant to run with the ball early. And then I remember the first play of the Michigan game. I believe it was early. It might have been the first play, it might have been the second, but I think it might have been the first play. They ran a little zone read, and Dwayne kept it and ran with it. And I think he gained 7 or 8 yards, and it was like you could tell he was sending like a not so subtle message to the team that, okay, boys, it's on today. And as you said, he lit them up. That was a great Michigan defense that came in that day, yep. And he just lit them up. And the only shame is that we didn't score 70. Is that if Meyer doesn't take the knee at the end or whatever, we go 70 points, because Dwayne was just magical, and he just hit everybody. They started to run those crossing routes, and Michigan had no answer for it, and it was especially deadly around the goal line. You just saw the Ohio State wide receiver just turning guys around, and just Dwayne just doing whatever he wanted back there. That really was, it was like that was his masterpiece. That was Dwayne's moment where I don't know if a quarterback. We've seen better statistical performances and better numbers and more direct completions, but in terms of having complete control and just completely emasculating the other team, that was about as dominant a performance as I've ever seen a human being do, is what Dwayne did to Michigan that day.
Yeah, with that level of competition, obviously they had Devin Bush, who was a top 15 pick. They had Rashawn Gary, that Winovich. That was a really heralded defense, and really it was Chris Olave's coming out party too. He made a couple incredible plays. He scored an early touchdown, as a freshman, and you didn't realize how good he was, obviously, because of how young he was. But I think that whole year, like, people didn't realize how good like Terry McLaurin was, and Paris Campbell's had a ton of major injuries in the NFL, so he hasn't really his career hasn't really taken off the way Terry's has. But I just remember I was in the stadium that day, and I couldn't believe how open guys were, how perfect his throws were. The guy just threw such a catchable ball. The guys were marked. Johnny Dixon had the quote of the century when he was asked, what does it look like when you're open, and Dwayne Haskins is he's just lofting these balls like right into your arms, and he literally said it's like it's like mama's home cooking. It's like, that's what it feels like. And I was like, it's about right. When the guy puts it right on the money and you don't even really have to work for it, it's incredible. And I think that that season and that performance, it left a void in the quarterback room, because I don't think going into the year that Urban Meyer or Ryan Day or Kevin Wilson had any thought that would be Dwayne's only year as a quarterback at Ohio State, as a starter. Like, I didn't think that they'd ever think that he'd leave after a third-year sophomore leaving is pretty rare. But his numbers and his production, when a guy goes first round, you can't, when guys leave early and they go fifth round, it's one thing, but when you go mid-first and projected top 10, like, it's hard not to go, because nothing's for certain. Any other thoughts on that Michigan game that day? It was a surreal year, because Urban he resigns, retires, hands the whistle to Ryan Day. But any more thoughts on that 18-year with Dwayne as our quarterback?
No, just it was just such a fun year, and just to touch on a little something that you said, though, even in his leaving, you think about, if Dwayne doesn't leave when he does, then Justin Fields doesn't come to Ohio State. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, again, the legacy, the mark that he left on Ohio State football. Right now, look at where we are. We're at a spot where we're just, throwing first-round quarterbacks back to back to back, and chasing away number one recruited quarterbacks for other recruited quarterbacks. And but it all started with Dwayne. It all started with Dwayne and that golden arm, and it's just, like I said, it's just such a sad day, but I just want to say thank you to Dwayne for giving me these great memories, because as you get older you realize all you really have at the end, you have your family and you have the memories. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And Dwayne wasn't family, but he sure provided me with a lot of great memories, and that 18 season was fun from beginning to end.
Yeah, and it was capped off with your favorite bowl game just because it's local for you, the Rose Bowl. Did you go to the Rose Bowl this year or in 18? Excuse me.
I did. Anytime I get a
Yeah.
chance to go, the Rose Bowl, for anybody who hasn't gone, people can talk all they want about the bowl games don't mean anything, and the Rose Bowl special. It's just different. It's special. It's an amazing place. It's an amazing venue. When the sun's setting on the hills right behind it, and just Ohio State there, just the pageantry, and just it brought back every great memory that I had of being a kid comes rushing back. And like I said, Dwayne, he gave us one of those magnificent. I think the first half they were good. Second half we kind of, we're like, yeah, whatever. We had a big lead and kind of took the foot off the gas, but it was great to see him send Meyer out with a win, send Meyer out with a Rose Bowl victory. Dwayne finished with the number one offense in the country, number three in the polls. Just a great way to cap off a magical season, and it was a fitting send off for Dwayne as he went off to the NFL and his millions. And like I said, he left the program in better shape. You always want to leave the program in better shape than when you came, and he certainly did that.
Yeah, I agree. He's, when he became the first quarterback that we had go first round, and I think it's Art Schleisner, it really puts you on the map in terms of quarterback recruiting. You can, because whatever you haven't done, teams will always use against you in recruiting. Like there was a while, like when Urban was there in 2012, a lot of coaches, one of the things they used against him in running back recruiting is that he'd never had a 1,000-yard rusher at Florida. He had a bunch of guys that would get 800 yards, 600, 500. Like he'd lead the nation in rushing or lead the SEC in rushing, but he'd use four guys to, and none of them would hit 1,000. So that was a big thing, when we were recruiting Ezekiel's, that other schools were saying, oh, well, you won't get 1,000 yards with Meyer because he spreads the ball too much. And, with Dwayne and with, our quarterbacks, we've had success. We've had Troy win the Heisman. We've had guys win national titles. We've had guys like Mike Tomczak playing the NFL for a long time, but we didn't really have that prototype franchise first round talent kind of guy. And then, we get Dwayne, and then, he leaves early. He goes first round. Justin Fields comes in. He's here for, he's 3 and out. His first year at Georgia, obviously his last year at Ohio State. And CJ Stroud's on that same path. This will be CJ Stroud's last year, 3 and out. And then, it's on to Dylan Raiola or whoever the next franchise type guy is, Devin Brown, Kyle McCord, whoever it is. So, I think his impact is going to be felt for a long time just because, the combination of him and Ryan Day's offense and coaching, it really has made this the place to be if you're a star quarterback and you want to be a first round pick. And Dwayne was the trailblazer that kind of started all that. So it's sad. Yeah, that the Rose Bowl, I mean, there's some games, like I always tell people, the Michigan game, the Rose Bowl, any bowl game, it's like if you can win it, it doesn't matter how ugly it is, it doesn't matter what the score is, it doesn't matter how well you played. If you can get the win, that's all that matters. Against Michigan, I was fortunate. I always played well, never gave up a sack, never had a penalty, graded out high. But with Michigan, all I cared about was winning. Like, it's all that matters. There's nothing, there's no style points. You just want the dub. You get the dub, you get to live the rest of your life as a champion and someone who beat Michigan. Like, Dwayne got to, leave his Ohio State career with the biggest win in history against Michigan, and also, a huge Rose Bowl win that sent out, maybe the greatest coach in Ohio State history out on a high note. So that was important. So close this thing out, Nevada. Any final thoughts? This has been a rough day. This has been a day that a lot of people are, they're mourning. I think a lot of people don't, they followed Dwayne. They might not have personally really known Dwayne, but anytime a 24-year-old loses his life tragically, it hurts. There's no other way to put it. And it makes you really focus on, you better enjoy your life. You better, take care of yourself, tell people you love them, do those little things, man. Because sometimes you just don't know when it's over. And I'm sure that a lot of people that are close to Dwayne are devastated today because, he's gone, and it's tough. It's really tough. Anything to close it with, Nevada, though?
Well, just that picture that you have up on the screen right now, just you can take that back and remember when there was like a young Dwayne Haskins. I don't remember, he was 8, 9, 10, whatever it was, and that white headband, and he's there at Ohio State, and he's talking about being an Ohio State quarterback someday. So, like, I mean, if there ever was a kid that was really born to be a Buckeye, it was Dwayne Haskins, and he said he was going to do it. And at the time, Ohio State wasn't known for throwing it around and, like you said, being that cradle for NFL quarterbacks. But he knew early on where he wanted to be. He followed his dream, and he did it, and he impacted a lot of people. And he'll be missed. He'll be missed. And I just want to say thank you, Dwayne, for all that he did for Ohio State football, and go Bucks to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,